And I hand over to Gunnar Sachs, who is a lawyer at Clifford Chance, and he will moderate our next panel. And Gunnar, please also introduce your guests.
Thank you so much, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are watching us. And welcome to our panel on AI and big data in medicine. I'm pleased to welcome on this panel today Omar Ali Iftal from Statist, Peter Schad from Siemens Healthineers, and Professor Martin Hirsch from the University in Marburg. Omar, first of all, is CEO and co-founder of Statist, a German software company commercializing IT solutions for data anonymization. Since 2018, Statist has helped organizations drive agility and innovation with synthetic data while safeguarding the privacy of individuals. The company has worked with various healthcare and pharmaceutical organizations in Europe with respect to data access challenges. Peter, as you already know from the previous keynote, is Chief Technology Officer at Siemens Healthineers. And Siemens Healthineers has a strong position when it comes to AI and big data in the healthcare space, with more than 20 years of experience in developing AI solutions and over 65 AI-based products and applications on the global market. And last but not least, Professor Martin Hirsch, who is head of the Institute for Artificial Intelligence in Medicine at the Philipps-Universität in Marburg, with long-standing experience in how to develop and implement AI solutions in the healthcare space. My name is Gunnar Sachs. I'm a lawyer and partner in the dedicated healthcare and tech groups of the global law firm Clifford Chance, where we advise clients from the medtech industry and pharmaceutical industry on all legal and regulatory aspects and challenges of the digitalization of the healthcare space, including AI and big data related challenges. As you have seen, this panel follows a keynote presentation by you, dear Peter, on how to fight cancer with digital patient twins. So first of all, thank you very much for this inspiring lecture. And Peter, we learned from your keynote that already today, AI is a key factor in fighting cancer, be it through digital monitoring, prevention, or in diagnostics. More general, what is AI in medicine capable of today?
Gunnar, thanks for having me here on that panel and also for the opportunity here to address with that question. Really, I think what I believe we all together have to accomplish when it comes to the next couple of years. So back to Siemens Healthineers, I think we're coming from a situation where we have used AI to automate very specific tasks along the journey. So for example, automating the scanning process, or even automating the reading process for the radiologist to help the professionals to do even a better job because they have better information and can make more informed decisions. However, I think the challenge is to now turn from a task-based automation and using AI for this into, along the patient journey, a flow of information which AI then is able to analyze and then to guide the physicians by taking the individual data of the patients from various sources, which are then interconnected. I think that is then the challenge, that there is not one task and one source of data which you can automate, but that you now have to integrate many different sources of data, which today are still compartmentalized and in silos where the access is very difficult. I believe that is the challenge we now have to overcome jointly.
Thank you so much, Peter, for this very concise and enlightening insight. Let me then move on to you, Omar. You and your team at Statist have in-depth experience in the development and use of so-called synthetic data in the healthcare space. Where exactly are the benefits and where are the challenges in using synthetic data instead of real patient data in the healthcare sector?
Thank you, Gunnar. Maybe I should start with why synthetic data in the first place. And I think Peter just touched on one of the issues, which is data collaboration and data scattered in silos that are isolated. I think this is one of the main challenges we see in digital healthcare. Of course, interoperability is one of the challenges. I think it's an important one. But even when standards and formats are agreed upon, there is still one big challenge that has the potential to block everything, and that is data privacy. Of course, data is extremely sensitive, even more so in healthcare, and healthcare was regulated even before GDPR. So this is meaning that data access and usage usually requires time-consuming approval processes in many cases, and access is just sometimes simply denied. So privacy technologies, as we see them, have the potential to alleviate these challenges. Synthetic data is or can be used as one such privacy technology and privacy enhancing techniques. And maybe to now go to what is synthetic data. So synthetic data is a relatively new technology, and it's, in a nutshell, artificially generated data based on real insights. Those real insights are coming from the real data. So this data has similar statistical properties and information, yet it's an irreversible process, and one cannot trace back specific individuals. I think the main idea behind it is that we don't necessarily need the specific identifying information of specific people in order to get valuable insights. And this is the promise behind synthetic data. So, And a number of points is that, or maybe main ones, is that the synthetic data will have the same structure and granularity level. It's also the same interface. So people are usually used to working with data directly, and synthetic data has this advantage.
Thank you very much, Omar. That's I would say, a really interesting outlook on into how the healthcare data space could look like in the future. Not too far away from now. So let's turn to Martin then. Martin, you definitely have long-standing scientific experience in developing and implementing AI and big data solutions in the healthcare sector, with a particular focus on the importance of genetics and digital twins. Why do you believe genetics are so relevant for digital twins with respect to all diagnosis, therapy, prevention, etc.?
As some of you might know, I'm also the founder of ADA Health. And ADA, for example, is a probabilistic system that helps you identifying what is behind your symptoms. And everyone, and ADA is a probabilistic system. And everyone knows that if you do a full genome sequencing and analyzing the predispositions you have regarding your health based on this genome, the result is a list of changed basic probabilities of diseases regarding your personal risk profile. And a system like ADA is able to import these kind of lists and adjust all the basic probabilities for diseases and then begin with the anamnesis or the medical history. And I think every doctor would have to do this, exactly this, because it makes a huge difference whether my basic probability for celiac disease is 20 times higher than in normal people. So you cannot do a good anamnesis without this information, but today, this is the standard today. And so genetic information is not only playing a role when planning therapies like Peter told us before, or when personalizing a therapeutic scheme. It's also important when it comes to making a diagnosis, from interpreting early signs coming up during your life. You have to interpret them in the light of genetic predisposition. And the same holds true, Peter showed it in his last slide, if you want to do prevention. Prevention can only be effective, especially primary prevention, when you know the personal risks of this person, because then you can interpret early signs coming up and start a preventative program. So for me, genetic is a key. And as you all know, and this connects to what Omar just told us, it's a huge amount of data regarding your person, and it's very, very private. So you have to find a solution where these data, genetic data, are stored on a place that is neither governed by the government nor by private companies.
Thank you so much, Martin, and for these very inspiring insights. And apologies again that I didn't mention Ada at during your introduction. So let me jump back to Peter. Peter, a very practical question then. How would you try to explain deep learning so that the layman could easily understand it? Maybe even with particular examples from your day-to-day business perspective. Do you have any practical examples from your professional environment, whether an AI algorithm really learns to learn?
Yeah. Before I answer that question, maybe a quick response also to Martin, because I also believe that this is really the next step to include genomic data for a simple reason. Only deep learning can really make that insights accessible, right? Because we come from a visual world, we see images, we have let's say a basic understanding what an image can tell us, and even a blood biomarker can tell us something because it's a simple number and a reference range, and we know what it means. But if you look at genomic data, you have no idea what it means, right? The only way to access the underlying information is to make it accessible to AI and then really learn from this also on very large amounts of data. What does it really tell, let's say, a physician or a patient or whomever, or the scientific community, right? So I believe AI is a key to open that treasure, actually. Now, how do I explain deep learning to anybody? To my imagination, deep learning is simply the capability to look at amounts of data which an individual brain, individual mind cannot even comprehend in a single lifetime, right? And having an algorithm looking at many different but comparable data sets. For example, X-ray images of the chest or so, right? Machine learning can identify what is common in these images and what is not common, and can easily filter out, let's say, the findings and then highlight them so that they, let's say, somebody who takes the results and looks at the images again is guided by the results of that deep learning algorithm.
Thank you very much, Peter. Very helpful. Omar, let's then talk a bit more about the quality of relevant data that is used for AI solutions. I think each of us knows that AI is only as good as the data we feed it. And I have a very good example. In the early days of AI research, a scientist from the German Max Planck Institute once told me that at that time they were working on simple image recognition systems and trying to train them to recognize horses in a pasture. And they finally got to the point where the AI solution recognized horses with a very high hit rate, until in one final test run, several cows were identified as horses. And when the problem was analyzed, they discovered that the AI solution had apparently learned to recognize as horses all animals in a pasture with a surrounding fence, because the research team at that time had regularly used images of horses in a pasture with surrounding fences to learn and train the AI solution. And I think this is a good example to show that not only quality, but also the selection of data is critical and essential for the success of AI solutions. So What do you think are the main challenges and main risks with none or poorly anonymized health data instead of synthetic data?
That's actually maybe two questions in one. I'll start with the second one and get to the first one. Of course, there's an anonymization question and the risk question and what the impact is, and then on the quality and what we can do there. So for the risk, I think maybe everybody has in mind some headline or some story about a privacy leak that happened. And usually the damage, you can always put it on three levels, almost always. The individual level, so the harm that touches the people whose data was leaked. So if your health data, sensitive health data, is out there in the open, you absolutely have no idea what impact will touch you. You definitely know it's very negative. In the case of genomic data, as Martin mentioned, this is not only individual, but maybe extends to your close family or relatives. Of course, there's the second level of harm, which is more about organizations managing those companies, if those data. If you are the company or the organization, the health provider that was subject to this privacy breach, then in all of the cases, the reputation damage is quite high. And of course, there's also the financial aspect to that. If it gets also with a specific fine due to not respecting certain guidelines or so. But in general, there's also this level of harm. And then, of course, the third, which is maybe the most worrying and the general one, which is damaging the trust in the systems and in the innovation. The more breaches we have, the more leaks we have, the less trust people put into those systems, and the less willingness they are in general having in order to share their personal data. This personal data that is extremely valuable to advance the digital health and health research in general. So this is for the first aspect. For the second aspect, which is about data quality, of course, data quality is a limit to everything you do afterwards. If you're developing an algorithm on bad quality data, your algorithm will definitely be bad. And what we can put behind it, as you mentioned, is maybe a limited data set. You only see one pattern and are completely blind to other patterns. Maybe you have underrepresented patient subgroups in your data, and this means that maybe your algorithm does not generalize well to those. For imbalance in general is something that can be seen. Small data also, if you're treating rare diseases and your data does not contain enough of those, it's very difficult to do anything with that, really. So these are all things that impact directly the data quality and the quality of everything you're developing on this data. I mentioned previously that synthetic data is mainly used for privacy. There are also use cases here in order to improve original data or to augment original data. Of course, you need to rely on external knowledge that's not in the real data in the first place. But these are all things that you can do to improve your systems.
Thank you so much, Omar. It sounds like synthetic data is not only a great opportunity for the entire medtech sector, but also and in particular for the orphan drug area. Martin, you told me last night in a brief preparatory session that AI and in particular digital twin solutions might help to prepare for a shift from today's rather disease-focused healthcare system to a more preventive healthcare system, not only in Germany, but also on a global level. Could you please elaborate a bit more on this interesting vision?
I think AI in combination with smartphones, which have a tremendous computational power, might open up this new area of health-focused healthcare systems. Today, our journey through the healthcare system begins if you have some symptoms or complaints, and then you're thinking, oh, should I go to the doctor or not, and so on. But it starts with a sign or a finding for a disease. If we want to overcome the high costs in our system and so on, we have to make a shift from this disease and symptom and finding oriented system to a more preventative system. And this can only happen with the help of these computational devices in the pockets, or which live nearby yourself and can make some observations during everyday life. Because you can see it when you look at Apple Health, what they included here for new features, only by analyzing the steps, the asymmetric walking patterns, different speeds, and so on. And you can draw a lot of conclusions regarding health if you analyze these things over a long period of time. Then the single measure is not so important. There can be many faults, there might be noise within this single measure. But if you measure every day, then you can make averages, and then you can see suddenly that there is a small increase of instability of walking or something like this. So this can only happen if we combine AI technologies that adapt the health model to your person, and then watch how your personal patterns develop over time. So you can use the single person as a kind of gold standard to see how his parameter sets change over time. And therefore, to do this, you need computational power in your pocket, as well as AI, learning system, adapting systems. And so this is why I hope that these technologies will enable us to do this shift from a disease-centered healthcare system to a more preventative, health-oriented healthcare system.
Which is a great vision, Martin, and thank you very much for this interesting outlook. With regard to the tight timing of our today's panel, let me hereby open the last round of questions and get back to you, Peter. We've been talking and discussing the benefits of artificial intelligence for a long time now, including on this stage and previous conferences. Why does it take so long to turn reality in the clinical routines in Germany, but also in other countries around the globe?
Well, there is one answer which is hard to influence, right? Health and physiology, individuals, humans, we are complex. So the complexity is really very high, right? Well, however, that's why we want to develop new tools like AI to understand exactly that complexity. However, I think, and that is the element we can influence, we need to create and establish more access to data, to even better data, and to multidimensional data, right? And be able to really integrate them into individual models to understand the complexity. This is only possible if you really go to multi-source data and really make them accessible. Yeah. But why is it also taking a long time? Maybe because we also were let's say, estimating the capabilities of AIs in the first place, right? So I think there is a little bit of a learning process right now, because we expected AI to tell us exactly what is it, what disease do I have, what exactly does it mean, right? But I also believe if we turn it around and ask the question, what is it not, is there to rule out, let's say, that there is a finding, right? That is a very important task, and it might also fold into what Martin just explained, right? And not telling me, oh, I have the disease XYZ, but to say, oh, everything is fine with me, right? So and the AI can tell me that much easier than telling me what kind of disease do I have. So I think we might want to shift a little bit the expectations, how we use AI and what we expect from this, because I think there is so much opportunity in automating many tasks in that value chain where today we can already trust AI to a large extent.
Thank you so much, Peter. And this answer was much better than I actually expected as a lawyer. I thought you would tell me the biggest obstacles are coming from legislation and lawyers. So, thank you so much for that. Omar, one final question for you. We learned that synthetic data are of particular importance when it comes to patient privacy. And you already touched upon some other use cases, but what are the other meaningful or major use cases for synthetic data in the healthcare space?
Yeah, definitely. I think I mentioned a few things beyond privacy, but what we see is definitely solving the data access problem and reducing the risk of using data is definitely the main use case. In healthcare, we see that the most common scenario is a data exchange scenario, and this is the scenario of some party has a lot of data and other party has a lot of analysis power, and somehow this exchange is locked. So this is definitely the first one, access to data with high granularity. There are other cases that usually accelerate development of new systems, of innovative systems. As a healthcare provider, you're working with a number of external partners, and you need to provide them with data in order for them to deliver to you the services that you need in a timely fashion. If you don't have that, then you will see a number of issues down the road. If you're a device manufacturer, then the data is valuable to improve your own product. This is one of the important ways you're getting the feedback. And of course, sometimes it's not allowed to send this sort of data back to the manufacturers. So these are a few things. If I had to continue the answer of Peter, I would definitely touch on the legal responsibility there, but I'd leave that for a different session.
Thank you so much, Omar. And that shows that there are many other areas of application and scope of application, which is great. So Martin, one final question for you. According to my experience, and I think I'm not the only one in that respect, who made this experience, there's still a significant number of physicians, not only in Germany, but also abroad, who understand AI solutions in the healthcare space rather than competitors, than assisting or supporting systems which could help them in their day-to-day business and professional life. So do you really think AI can help reduce the cognitive load of physicians, or will it just increase the flood and availability of information that physicians will have to process in the same amount of time?
That's a good question. I'm sitting here in a university clinic and changed from startup in Berlin to this very hard place. Because exactly to learn more about these cognitive processes within doctors and nurses working on a daily basis here in the clinic. And if you watch them work, you can see a lot of things that put huge cognitive pressure on them. Time pressure. They do not know, have the data already been delivered by the lab or not. They have to go to the computer, check whether they are there or not. Look, no, they are not there. Okay, then let's do first this one and then go back to the computer. They have to take a lot of information into consideration when planning a therapy or finding the right diagnosis. So, and then think of the huge amount of data coming up every day by publications, medical publications, even within your field. there are much too many publications coming up. You are not able to read them anymore. So you have a huge information overload for each physician, and we need to build machines that help them manage all these things. First thing, make the workflow, the information workflow within the clinic more accessible and not so painful like it is today. But this has nothing to do with artificial intelligence. It's only a matter of digitalization and mobile devices in the hands of these doctors. But in addition, we need machines, and this is why not only data and data analytics are important within AI, but also natural language processing technologies that read through the papers, read through the studies, and present the important information from these sources into the bedside decision-making process. Yeah? And they all have to be aggregated on a mobile device for these physicians. And my experience here in a clinic today is that everyone wants to have such a device. Yeah? They are skeptical because they cannot imagine that such a system will work. But if there would be such a system, they would welcome it. That's for sure. And so I think it's a typical changing time. Yeah, the times are changing, and the way we practice medicine will change. And if you will sit here in 10 years' time, we will see a complete different information workflow within such a clinic, supported by AI, bringing the relevant information to the bedside and helping making the right decisions.
Thank you so much, Martin, for this final insight. So true. And with this, we come, unfortunately, already to the end of our today's panel on AI and big data in medicine. It was a great pleasure to co-host and to moderate this panel with you, dear Omar, Peter, and Martin. The exchange of technical expertise was always particularly exciting and interesting for me as a lawyer. I hope that you, dear viewers and participants, found the panel also informative and entertaining. And I wish you a great rest of your day with further interesting presentations and discussions. With this, goodbye from us, and stay well and healthy.